Hey, this is Ryan of Happy Healthy Vegan. Yeah, it doesn't suck being vegan. You can suck on this, what I've learned. Anyway, I want to thank our viewers for encouraging me to make a part 2 because, like I said, I don't even think I got halfway through his video. There was just so much nonsense to cover and I knew I had a long video. So thanks for telling me to watch the second half of his video because there's even way more nonsense. It's probably even worse in the second half. And one thing I've put together from watching his entire video now is he wasn't trying in any way, shape, or form to make this like a what I learned about vegan diets, like he's pursuing the truth in some kind of objective manner, unbiased. No, this is a completely biased, slanted hit piece against veganism. He didn't interview any plant-based medical doctors or nutrition experts or anything like that, or long-term vegans such as myself have been doing it, in my case, 12 and a half years, great blood tests that I share with you guys, excellent athleticism for my age. No, the only one person he interviewed was Ravana, a raw fruitarian. And what's worse, what I've learned has no idea what veganism really is. Let's take a look at the definition of veganism here. It goes back to the 1940s. It's not about achieving perfect health or saving the planet or anything like that. It's a stance against animal cruelty and exploitation. Yet he's one of these many people that thinks going vegan means you're going to be deficient and die of protein deficiency, calcium deficiency, because all we eat are tofu and salad. But anyway, let's jump right into part 2 of what I didn't learn about veganism.
But when it comes to diets, we know of one that has a good track record.
Oh, please, what I've learned. Please share with us this one diet that you know of that has a great track record. And I'm sure this diet involves eating a ton of meat and not too many plants, right?
Maybe you've heard of the term diseases of civilization, which refers to heart disease, cancer, osteoporosis, diabetes, and so on.
So are you saying eating plants is what causes all those diseases, like heart disease?
Anthropologists could tell you that before agriculture came along, hunter-gatherers very rarely had any of these afflictions that are so common today. They also had robust skeletons and broad faces that allowed for straight, cavity-free teeth.
Many Fridays, I have knuckleheads that come on and try to argue how they need to eat like their ancient ancestors did. They always forget about the gatherer part and hunter-gatherer. Like, what does he really believe that these Native Americans ate? And I assume he's describing Native Americans here when he talks about hunter-gatherers because he kept showing a ton of photos of Native Americans. Looks like from like the 1800s. Anyway, their pre-contact diet is very well known. It's not eating a ton of meat like he's fantasizing here. It's corn, beans, and squash. And it's true, these pre-contact Native Americans had relatively good dental health, but if you read as to why, it says they ate a diet mostly of beans, squash, fish and game, as well as fruits and nuts. And it's their high fiber diet that helped keep their teeth and gums healthy. Yes, it was eating all those plants, all that fiber that kept their teeth and gums healthy. I mean, what are you trying to say here, what I've learned? This makes no sense. You've like shot yourself in the foot on this example. And if we go back into ancient history, over 3,500 years ago to ancient Egypt, scientists have found mummies and analyzed them and found that many of them have heart disease. And strangely, it was the wealthier Egyptians that had higher incidence of heart disease, and these are the ones eating a bunch of animal products like cattle and geese.
If the dangers of living outdoors without the aid of modern medical care didn't kill them, they lived quite long and without chronic disease.
Well, in ancient Egypt, you're lucky to reach the ripe old age of 30, but maybe, for what I've learned, these ancient Egyptians had too much civilization there, too many diseases of civilization. Let's see how Native Americans fared. Well, actually, not much better. Pre-Columbian contact Native Americans rarely made it to age 50, and the average lifespan was around 35. So I'm 55, so I would have been dead probably 20 years ago. So I wouldn't look at the ancient hunter-gatherer lifespans as some kind of model of like great health to aspire to. I want to do better than people who die before the age of 40.
Cheese and bacon still have saturated fat.
Uh-oh, he's not going to go there, is he?
So you want to limit them.
Cut back on saturated fat.
A huge 2020 review explained that saturated fat-rich foods like whole-fat dairy or unprocessed meat themselves are not associated with an increased risk of heart disease.
Oh really? So you're saying all that saturated fat in meat and dairy is somehow just null and void. It's completely harmless because of this one study that you're citing here. Well, let's take a look at the study he's citing here because it's hilarious. So if you look at the sources of funding for the authors of the study, it reads like a who's who of the international meat and dairy industry. Literally, pretty much every continent is represented here as far as the meat and dairy industries funding these authors. Furthermore, there's some business interests like in ketogenic businesses and the Atkins Foundation funding some of these authors as well. So yes, the meat and dairy industries are very well represented in this study, and what's to me conspicuously absent are the opinions of, say, organizations of heart professionals like cardiologists. Well, let's look at, say, the American Heart Association and see what they recommend as far as saturated fat. In their opinion, as is the opinion of pretty much any respectable cardiology association I've ever seen, is that eating too much saturated fat raises your LDL cholesterol, which increases your risk of heart disease. And therefore, unlike what I've learned is suggesting here, the American Heart Association recommends limiting people's intake of meat and dairy. Why do they say this? Because they're not being funded by the meat and dairy industries. They're telling you the truth. As they say so clearly here, decades of sound research clearly shows that too much saturated fat raises your LDL cholesterol and increases your risk of heart disease, despite what the meat and dairy industries want you to think. And furthermore, unlike the dangerous information from what I've learned, the American Heart Association says you can't go wrong with eating more fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. And they also add, when you hear odd-sounding theories like what I've learned is putting out here to his millions of followers, like, yeah, saturated fat from meat and dairy, no problem, it's totally fine for you. They say to consider the source of information. Here it's some guy who's not a health expert or anything, not a doctor. He's citing a meat and dairy industry-funded study that's trying to show that their products are safe and fine. So who are you going to trust more? Decades of scientific research or the meat and dairy industry? It's your choice. And really quickly here to show you what can happen in a study that doesn't have such conflicted interests as the meat and dairy industry funded studies have. Here, this study found that for people aged 70 to 100 years with elevated LDL cholesterol had the highest absolute risk of heart disease.
In fact, there are all kinds of compounds only found in meat that we currently assume are not necessary to have in the diet.
Well, I can just flex right back and show you a whole list of vitamins and nutrients that are next to impossible to obtain unless you're eating plants. Furthermore, fiber and phytonutrients are found exclusively in plants, so suck on that.
Just to look at two, this 2002 paper argues that taurine may be essential in certain circumstances, and creatine supplementation has benefits for brain function in adults like improving memory, intelligence, and mood.
Well, if you happen to be one of these odd, rare people who need to have taurine, fortunately, taurine is almost always vegan, and you can just take a supplement. And likewise, there's plenty of vegan creatine supplements if you really feel you need some.
The other thing is reality versus theories. In theory, you could take a retinol supplement, a B12 supplement, a zinc supplement, an algae-derived DHA supplement, a kelp-derived iodine supplement. You could take a vitamin D supplement.
Bullshit, it's not that hard. I mean, I just take a vitamin B12 supplement. I recently, after like 12 years of being vegan, got this multivitamin from the Vegan Society, but that's it. It makes it sound like you have to do all this careful planning of supplement taking or else you will die of vitamin deficiency.
Again, meat is so nutrient dense that you can get a decent amount of well-absorbed zinc, iron, selenium, choline, various B vitamins, vitamin A, calcium, and other nutrients just eating a crappy cheeseburger.
Well, there's plenty of Americans out there eating crappy cheeseburgers and eating crappy meat and dairy products, and they're still taking vitamins. So back off on vegans needing to be the ones who take vitamins. Nearly 80% of Americans take vitamin supplements. It's not just a vegan thing, it's an American thing. In fact, as I showed before, nearly 40% of Americans who are eating meat, by the way, are either deficient or dangerously low in their vitamin B12. And I have yet to ever find a medical doctor who says, because I've talked to them about this, like, hey, if your B12 is low, do you recommend that they just eat more meat? No, they recommend, guess what, a vitamin B12 supplement. So shut up with this nonsense.
Looking at the updated Impossible Burger ingredient list, they basically swapped the animal protein with soy.
Yes, they removed a needlessly killed and exploited animal and replaced it with soy. So what?
The information about soy-based food. It's been so confusing. Is it good for us? Is it bad for us?
Why do so many people have so many fears about soy? Asian people, such as myself, my ancestors, have been eating soy for thousands of years, and all those guys aren't like growing man boobs and becoming infertile or something like that. Why are you guys afraid of soy? Tell me.
The hormone disrupting effects of increased soy consumption is somewhat controversial.
Somewhat controversial? It's just complete BS.
But it may explain why a study on almost 8,000 boys found boys born to vegetarian mothers had a higher risk for a specific deformity in the genitals called hypospadias.
Okay, now I'm getting pissed off because he's making it sound like that consuming soy increases your risk for this disease he's talking about here. And if you look at the study, which I bothered to have a look at, soy is not even mentioned whatsoever. Yeah, there's a vegetarian group that they measured, but nowhere in there did they say the vegetarians even ate a speck of soy in their entire lives. He's one of these people that assumes that as soon as you go vegan, you eat nothing but soy and salad. So it's complete disingenuous and total misinformation for him to connect eating tofu with this disease.
Soy has this plant-based estrogen, isoflavones.
Men think about the estrogen effects as well.
Soy contains the isoflavonoid genistein, which a 2022 meta-analysis found has detrimental effects on the male reproductive system.
Mike, please tell me more. You're saying vegan men are unable to procreate or have a tougher time? Well, that goes against everything I've seen from the many vegan couples I know who have made babies successfully. Are you saying that it decreases our manliness, like it just destroys our testosterone levels? Well, I know I'm about maybe 20 years older than what I've learned, but I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to bet $100 that my testosterone levels as a 55-year-old vegan eating all this horrible tofu, I bet you mine are higher than his. Here's my latest testosterone test here. It's nearly 900. I mean, these are high levels even for a dude in his 20s or 30s, which I assume he is. So let's see your testosterone test, bro.
Kidney beans need to be soaked and cooked to reduce the lectin content.
What another just completely knuckleheaded thing to say. Like, who in their right mind eats legumes without having them been soaked first? They're hard as rocks. And when you soak them, that neutralizes these horrible lectins in them. I mean, this is a non-problem.
Plants have various other gut-aggravating compounds like oxalate, FODMAPs, gluten, or phytic acid.
I can't believe he's bringing this up again. We talked about this in part 1. Yes, these so-called harmful anti-nutrients like phytates and lectins. Yes, if we look at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health website, they talk about these horrible anti-nutrients that are easily deactivated when you soak them or sprout them or boil them, as you do with any legume.
Phytic acid found in beans, seeds, nuts, and grains inhibits fat digestion and the absorption of calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, and zinc.
Wow, so that sounds pretty frightening. So if you eat legumes, you're going to have nutritional deficiencies, and it should affect the quality and length of your life, right? I mean, all these problems happen when you eat legumes, and nothing could be further from the truth. The scientific consensus is very, very clear on this, and this is why you shouldn't get nutritional advice from some non-expert with this anti-plant agenda like what I've learned. The science is absolutely clear. Eating legumes, consuming legumes, is associated with increased lifespan.
Fiber itself worsens the activity of pancreatic lipase, which is important for the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, and K2.
So if what I've learned has the thing against fiber too, well, that's great, because 95% of Americans, I'm sure himself included, are already deficient in fiber. So good job there, bro.
A high intake of goitrogenic plants like cabbage, kale, and turnips can interfere with iodine functioning.
A high intake of cabbage, kale, and turnips? Please comment down below, fellow vegans, if you find that you have a strangely high consumption of those plants, because I don't.
Food scientist Dr. Frederick Leroy has written an extensive article on the various examples of why it's a challenge to acquire enough of certain nutrients just from plants, due to inhibiting compounds like these.
So one lone guy wrote an article, some guy with a weird agenda against vegans, claiming that we have some kind of vegan agenda. In fact, I gotta check out this video in the future. I love it when people think there's some kind of the vegan agenda. And once again, this just shows his bias. Instead of listening to the many health organizations from around the world who have looked into the current scientific literature on nutrition and plant-based diets, who have concluded that appropriately planned vegan diets are nutritionally adequate, no, listen to this one guy who says it's not possible. Yeah, it sounds like a great way to go about things. Yeah, great job once again showing your very clear biases here and not looking into what the scientific consensus is.
This nutrient challenge is part of the reason why the German Nutrition Society in 2016 and the French-speaking pediatric HGN group in 2019 recommended against a vegan diet for adolescents, children, or mothers.
once again, great job here, ignoring the preponderance of health organizations who have come out recommending appropriately planned vegan diets for adolescents and mothers. No, you found 2 outlier organizations who have some reservations about that. They don't completely ignore vegan diets or say not to do them. They're just saying if you must do a vegan diet, make sure you're supplementing with at least B12 and hopefully some other supplements.
With that in mind, a plant-based diet is an experiment without any meaningful track record.
Especially when it comes to kids, I think it is a very risky thing.
Yeah, really good advice there. Just follow the advice of fitness YouTuber John Venus, who has no training in nutrition, dietetics, or medicine. Take his word over, say, the dietary guidelines of Australia, who say it's perfectly fine and safe to feed children appropriately planned vegan diets.
It's been a couple decades at best that people have been doing purely vegan diets, yet so many people are already quitting for health reasons.
And so many people like myself who went vegan for animal rights are still vegan and our healths aren't wrecked. In fact, as I've shown, my health is better than it's ever been. How many people are healthier at age 55 than 30? I've shown my blood test comparing the two. I'm aging in reverse, sort of. Anyway, yeah, nice job not interviewing any people like myself, and all you did was find some fitness influencers who were focused on eating raw fruit and 30-day fasts and wrecked their health that way and blamed it on veganism. Yeah, good job there.
So at the end of the day, science is a promising story of progress. Maybe one day we'll learn enough to make a sufficient plant-based replacement for animal foods. But I don't think it's happening anytime soon.
We don't replace animal foods. We just eat whole food plants. I think you're just stuck in this like beginners or noobs mindset. You don't understand. We're not replacing. We eat plants, and I specialize or focus on whole food plants. And as I've shown and repeated ad infinitum here, my health hasn't been wrecked yet. Yes, we have a way to eat plants and not lose our health. You're just too stupid to understand that, or just too dishonest to talk to people such as myself.
On that note, let's take a moment to thank the sponsor of this video, Element. Don't worry, Element has nothing to do with cow's blood. It's just a great tasting way to get your electrolytes and stay hydrated without any sugar.
Hey, I'd like to encourage everyone to contact his sponsor here and let them know what they're paying for here. They're paying for a guy to put out misinformation that could potentially kill you. Yes, like his information about saturated fat has no effect on, say, like your LDL cholesterol and heart disease. Totally cool because of this meat industry and dairy industry funded study. You can have all the saturated fat you want. You're going to live a long time. It's totally cool. This is, again, goes against the general scientific consensus. I've seen no cardiology groups come out and say anything remotely like that. So please let Element know what they got here. So anyway, I want to thank all you guys who are still with me here. I know this is going to be another long video, and that's why I broke it up, or else my video would have been 40 minutes, my original response. So I guess I have like 2 20-minute videos. So anyway, let me know down in the questions and comments what you thought of his video. I mean, is this one of the worst pieces of anti-vegan misinformation out there, considering his big following and just how dangerous his misinformation is, and just how easily you can fact check what he says? And what got me more than anything, like I said, is just he made no effort whatsoever to present another side, just one side of just vegan sucks, eating plants makes you sick. Didn't talk to any health experts, no long-term vegans, just a couple failed YouTube influencers, and that's it. Just shows how he had no intention whatsoever to present any kind of objective picture. He just wanted to present his own personal biases, and who knows, maybe he's receiving some money from a meat or dairy special interest. I only could speculate, but it wouldn't surprise me one bit. So anyway guys, leave your questions and comments down below. Hit like, share this video, become a channel member, get some of our special Happy Fam only videos that Angie's been making lately. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. Remember, doesn't suck being vegan.